Commander Zexathari stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars disappear behind smoke and fire. His forearms gripped the command rail as another explosion lit up the darkness. The Coalition fleet was dying. 3 years. They had fought the Velcross swarm for 3 long years, and they were losing. Every day brought more of the enemy bioships. Endless waves of living vessels that crashed against their defensive line like an angry ocean. Every day, fewer Coalition ships remained to fight back. "Commander, the eastern flank is collapsing," his tactical officer reported. The young officer's antenna drooped with exhaustion. "We have lost 12 more ships." Zexathari clicked his mandibles together, a sign of stress among his people. They had started this battle with 300 ships. Now, barely 100 remained operational. The Velcross had thousands. The enemy was different from anything the galaxy had seen before. They did not negotiate. They did not retreat. They simply consumed everything in their path, converting entire worlds into more bioships, more weapons, more soldiers. The Velcross swarm had already eaten 7 Coalition worlds. Billions dead. "Send another distress call," Zexathari ordered. "All channels, all languages. We need reinforcements now." His communications officer worked quickly, broadcasting their desperate plea across the galaxy. Minutes passed. Then an hour. A few responses came back. The Thaxian Empire sent regrets but could spare no ships. The Crystalline Collective offered prayers. The Merchants Guild wished them luck. Then a new message appeared on the screen. It was simple, almost cold in its brevity. "Acknowledged. Vessel en route. ETA 14 hours, Terran Confederation Navy." Zexathari felt his stomach sink. Humans, the newcomers, they had only joined the Galactic Coalition 5 years ago, eager and friendly, but completely untested in real warfare. Their species was young, their technology average at best. What could one human ship possibly do against the Velcross? "Should I confirm the message, Commander?" the communications officer asked. "Yes," Zexathari said, though doubt filled his voice. "Acknowledge their response." His second-in-command, a tall reptilian named Cross, leaned closer. "Humans," he hissed. "I have read reports about them. Strange creatures. They eat food that burns their mouths for pleasure. They keep dangerous predators as pets. They jump from perfectly safe aircraft for fun. I remember the cultural briefings," Zexathari replied. He had found humans fascinating during his studies. They were the only species that voluntarily chose close combat when ranged weapons were available. Their soldiers sang before battles, as if war was something to celebrate rather than endure. They gave names to their weapons, treating them like living things. But fascinating did not mean effective. The galaxy had been at war for millions of years before humans even discovered fire. Every species in the Coalition had evolved their tactics over countless conflicts. Humans were babies playing at war. Another explosion rocked the ship. The Velcross were pressing their advantage, sensing weakness. Their bioships moved like a school of predatory fish coordinated by some unseen intelligence. Every Coalition tactic had failed against them. Long-range bombardment? The Velcross simply absorbed the losses and kept coming. Defensive formations? They flanked and surrounded. Retreat? They pursued relentlessly. "Commander, we cannot hold this line for 14 more hours," Cross said quietly. "We will be destroyed in 6, maybe 8 hours at most." Zexathari knew his second was right. The math was brutal and simple, but what choice did they have? The Calthax Nebula was the last defensive position before the Velcross reached the core worlds. If they abandoned it, 50 billion souls would be exposed to the swarm. "We hold," he said firmly. "We hold until help arrives, or we hold until we cannot hold anymore." The bridge crew worked in grim silence. Ships exploded on the tactical display like dying stars. The Velcross pressed closer. Zexathari watched his fleet shrink with each passing minute. 70 ships, 60 ships, 50. He thought about the human ship coming to help them. What would it even look like? Human vessels were reportedly sturdy, but unremarkable. They used primitive chemical propulsion alongside their basic fusion drives. Their weapons were mostly kinetic, like ancient railguns. Nothing exotic, nothing impressive. Still, there was something in those cultural reports that nagged at his memory. Humans were one of the few species that had nuclear weapons and chose to keep them, even after joining the peaceful coalition. When asked why, their ambassador had smiled and said, "Because we remember what happens when you're not prepared for the worst." The Velcross bioships began another assault wave, hundreds of them moving in perfect synchronization. They crashed against the coalition shields, tearing through them with organic weapons that grew and adapted mid-battle. "All ships, weapons free," Zexathari commanded. "Give them everything we have." The coalition fleet fired back, energy beams and missiles lancing through the darkness. They killed dozens of Velcross ships, but dozens meant nothing when hundreds remained. And behind those hundreds, sensors showed thousands more waiting. 14 hours until the human ship arrived. Zexathari looked at the tactical display and knew they would be lucky to survive 6. "All crew," he announced across the fleet channels. "We are the shield between the swarm and our homes. We will not break. We will not run. We hold the line." His words sounded brave, but as another coalition ship exploded into fragments, he wondered if bravery would be enough. 12 hours had passed. The coalition fleet was down to 37 ships. Zexathari had not slept, had not eaten, had not left his command chair. His eyes burned with exhaustion as he watched another frigate explode on the tactical display. "Commander," his sensor officer called out. New contact dropping from faster-than-light travel. Bearing 270. It's the human ship." Zexathari felt a flutter of hope, quickly crushed by reality. One ship. They had sent one ship to face a swarm of thousands. The human vessel appeared on the main display. It was smaller than Zexathari expected, roughly the size of a coalition heavy cruiser. The hull was dark gray, scarred and pitted like it had seen many battles. Strange symbols and markings covered its armor. At the bow, painted in bright white letters, was a name: TCNS Inquisitor. "They're broadcasting," the communications officer said. A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in clear Galactic common. It was female, calm, almost casual despite the battle raging around them. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Confederation Navy ship Inquisitor, responding to Coalition distress call. We read your situation. Recommend all Coalition forces pull back 50 kilometers immediately. We are going weapons-free in 90 seconds. Zexathari stared at the display in disbelief. Pull back? That would create a massive gap in their defensive line. The Velcross would pour through like water through a broken dam. "Human vessel, this is Commander Zexathari. We cannot pull back." "If we abandon this position," the human captain interrupted him. "Commander, you sent a distress call. That means you need help. Let us help you. You have 90 seconds to retreat 50 kilometers. I strongly suggest you use them." Cross leaned close to Zexathari. "Commander, this is insane. One human ship cannot possibly— 70 seconds, the human captain said. Zexathari made a decision. They were dying anyway. What did they have to lose? All ships fall back 50 kilometers. Maximum speed. Do it now. The coalition fleet turned and accelerated away from their defensive line. The Velcross, sensing weakness, surged forward. Thousands of bioships filled the gap, rushing toward the retreating coalition forces. They ignored the single human vessel sitting alone in the darkness. That was their first mistake. All coalition vessels are clear of the engagement zone, Zexathari's sensor officer reported. The human ship is— Commander, I'm reading massive power signatures. Their reactor output just increased by 400%. How is that possible? The Inquisitor began moving forward. Not retreating, advancing, straight toward the approaching swarm. Inquisitor to Coalition Fleet. Captain Chen's voice came again. You might want to close your external viewports. This is going to be bright. The human ship accelerated faster than anything its size should move. It dove into the Velcross swarm like a shark into a school of fish. Then it opened fire. The first weapons to activate were kinetic railguns. Zexathari had read about these primitive human weapons, firing solid metal slugs instead of energy beams. The Coalition had abandoned such technology centuries ago. But as he watched, those primitive weapons tore through Velcross bioships like they were paper. The railguns fired at incredible speeds, Each slug accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit, they didn't just punch holes. They exploded, converting their kinetic energy into devastating fireballs that consumed everything nearby. "They're firing nuclear missiles," the tactical officer said, his voice filled with shock.
"Multiple warheads yield."
"Commander, those are weapons-grade nuclear devices. Most civilized species had banned nuclear weapons 3,000 years ago. They were brutal, inelegant, dangerous to everyone, including the user. But humans had kept them, and now Zexathari understood why. Each missile carved through the Velcross formations, detonating in brilliant flashes that vaporized dozens of bioships at once. The Inquisitor moved through the swarm like a berserker, all weapons blazing. It did not try to avoid enemy fire. It did not maneuver defensively. It charged straight ahead, taking hits on its thick armor while dealing death with every weapon it possessed. "Their armor," the sensor officer breathed. "Commander, their hull is designed completely differently than ours. It's not meant to avoid damage. It's meant to absorb it and keep fighting." Zexathari watched in awe. Coalition ships were built for speed and shields, trying to avoid enemy fire. The human ship was built like a fortress, layer upon layer of heavy armor designed to take punishment. When Velcross weapons hit its hull, they scorched the armor, melted sections of plating, but the ship kept fighting. The Inquisitor's tactics were equally alien. It deliberately closed to point-blank range with Velcross bioships, where the two vessels were almost touching. At that range, the human railguns were utterly devastating. The enemy's swarming tactics, which overwhelmed coalition vessels with numbers, actually worked against them. Every shot the Inquisitor fired hit multiple targets. "They're launching boarding pods," Cross said in disbelief. "The humans are actually boarding Velcross ships." Small pods fired from the Inquisitor, magnetic clamps attaching them to crippled enemy vessels. Seconds later, explosions bloomed from within those bioships as human marines planted charges in their cores. Captain Chen's voice came over the channel again, this time speaking to her own crew. The Coalition accidentally heard it on an open frequency. "Gunnery, I need firing solutions on targets Delta through Kappa. Marines, good work on those boarding actions. Engineering, I know we're running hot, but I need that reactor at 120% for another 10 minutes. We're just getting started." Her voice was tired but determined. In the background, Zexathari could hear alarms blaring, crew members shouting orders, and the thunder of weapons fire. But there was no panic, no fear. Just professionals doing their job. The battle raged for 30 minutes. When it finally ended, the Velcross assault wave was broken. Hundreds of their bioships floated dead in space, torn apart by human weapons. The rest retreated, pulling back in disarray. The Inquisitor limped toward the Coalition lines. Its armor was scorched black. Whole sections were melting from heat, and fires burned in exposed compartments. But its weapons were still active, and its engines still pushed it forward. "Human vessel, this is Commander Zexathari," he said slowly. "That was impressive. Request permission to send repair crews." "Negative, Commander," Captain Chen replied. "We've got this. But we could use an update on enemy fleet positions. We're not done yet. Not done yet." One ship battered and burning against thousands of enemies, and the humans wanted to keep fighting. Zexathari clicked his mandibles together, not in stress this time, but in respect. Maybe the humans were not babies playing at war after all. 2 hours after the battle, Zexathari stood in the docking bay waiting for Captain Chen. The Inquisitor had accepted his offer to dock for face-to-face discussions. Through the viewport, he could see the human ship up close. It looked even worse than the sensors had shown. Entire sections of armor had melted away. Scorch marks covered every surface. Debris and frozen atmosphere vented from hull breaches. Yet repair crews swarmed over it like insects, already welding plates and sealing leaks. "They work fast," Cross observed beside him. "Most crews would need days to assess that damage." The humans started repairs before they even docked. The airlock cycled open. A group of humans emerged, led by a woman in a dark blue uniform. Captain Sarah Chen was younger than Zexathari expected, perhaps 30 years in human terms. Her short black hair was messy, and soot stained her face and hands. Her uniform showed burn marks and torn sections hastily patched. She moved with the careful stiffness of someone hiding injuries. Behind her came 6 human soldiers in heavy armor, carrying weapons even though they were on a friendly ship. Their eyes constantly scanned for threats. Warriors, Zexathari realized. Not just soldiers, but people who lived for battle. Commander Zexathari, Chen said, extending her hand in the human greeting. Thank you for the docking clearance. Zexathari carefully shook her hand with one of his four. Human grip strength was impressive. Captain Chen, I must thank you for your assistance. Your ship's performance was extraordinary. Chen smiled tiredly. We do what we can. Your distress call said you needed help. Yes, but I expected more than one ship, Zexathari admitted. No disrespect intended, but how did your government decide that a single vessel was sufficient reinforcement? The smile faded from Chen's face. Commander, we didn't know how many you needed. If we had known the situation was this bad, we would have sent 3 ships. 3 ships. Against thousands of Velcross bioships, she thought 3 human vessels would be enough. Zexathari didn't know if that was courage or madness. They walked to a conference room. Chen accepted water but declined food, saying her stomach couldn't handle alien cuisine after combat stress. Her soldiers stood by the door, still alert. Captain, I must understand, Zexathari began. Your tactics are unlike anything in Coalition doctrine. You charged directly into the enemy swarm. You accepted damage that would have destroyed most ships. You used weapons we consider outdated or banned. Why? Chen took a long drink of water before answering. Commander, how long have you been fighting the Velcross? 3 years. And in those 3 years, how many battles have you won? Zexathari clicked his mandibles uncomfortably. We have achieved tactical victories, inflicted significant casualties. How many battles have you won? Chen repeated. Where the enemy was destroyed or forced to permanently retreat? Silence filled the room. They both knew the answer. None. 0 victories. Just a slow, grinding retreat. The Coalition fights wars of attrition, Chen said. You calculate acceptable losses. You preserve your forces. You fight to minimize casualties on both sides. This is logical. This is civilized. This is how advanced species conduct warfare. She leaned forward, and Zexathari saw something hard and cold in her eyes. Humans don't fight like that, Commander. We don't fight to minimize losses or achieve tactical advantages. We fight to win, and winning means the enemy never wants to fight us again. That's barbaric, Cross hissed. Yes. Chen agreed without hesitation. It is. War is barbaric. Pretending otherwise doesn't make it less true. She pulled up a holographic display from her wrist computer. Images appeared in the air between them. Ships, battles, planets burning. 6 months ago, a Velcross scout swarm attacked one of our colony worlds. New Perth, population 2 million. They wiped out the entire colony in 8 hours. Every man, woman, and child consumed by the swarm. Zexathari had not known this. The humans had never reported it to the Coalition. We took it personally, Chen continued. Her voice was cold now, emotionless. Humanity has fought wars for our entire history. Against each other, against our environment, against everything. We only unified as a species 30 years ago. And you know what finally brought us together? Realizing we weren't alone in the universe. Realizing there were threats out there bigger than our petty conflicts. She closed the hologram. We keep weapons other species banned because we remember what happens when you're not prepared for the worst. We use kinetic weapons because they're simple, reliable, and devastating. We armor our ships heavy because we'd rather take the hit and keep fighting than try to dodge. We name our weapons and sing before battle because war is hell, and anything that helps our people face hell is worth doing. But why fight so aggressively? Zexathari asked. Why risk your ship and crew when careful tactics could? Because the Velcross don't understand careful tactics, Chen interrupted. They understand strength. Predators understand predators. We needed to show them that humans are apex predators too. She stood and walked to the viewport, looking at the stars. Do you know what message we sent to every known species 5 years ago, when we joined the Coalition? An automated broadcast, simple and clear. Warning, human war vessels are entering your space. We come in peace. Do not give us a reason to come in war. Cross made a disgusted sound. Arrogant. Strategic, Chen corrected. Psychological warfare is a weapon, Commander. Reputation is a weapon. Fear is a weapon. We wanted every species to know what humans are capable of before they decided to test us. Zexathari thought about the battle he had witnessed. The Inquisitor charging alone into the swarm. The brutal efficiency of its weapons. The fearless boarding actions. The humans had not just won a battle. They had sent a message. Captain, our intelligence indicates the Velcross are gathering for a counterattack, he said quietly. A massive force. They want revenge for today's defeat, and I believe they will target your ship specifically. Chen turned from the viewport, and for the first time since meeting her, Zexathari saw her smile. Really smile. Good, she said. We were hoping they'd do that. You want them to attack you? Commander, the Inquisitor wasn't sent here to save your fleet. That was secondary. We came here to send the Velcross a message about what happens when they attack human colonies. She walked back to the table and pulled up tactical data. We tracked the swarm that destroyed New Perth back to this sector. These are the same Velcross, or at least part of the same Queen Mind. We want them to come. We want them to mass their forces and attack us with everything they have. But your ship is damaged, Zexathari protested. You cannot possibly— The Inquisitor was the first ship to arrive, Commander, Chen said softly. We needed to assess the situation, understand the enemy tactics, and broadcast specific tactical data back to Earth. She looked directly at Zexathari, and he felt a chill run through his body. Admiral Cormac and the Third Fleet will arrive in 6 hours, 50 ships, and they're not coming to defend. They're coming to make sure the Velcross regret ever hearing the word human. 6 hours later, Zexathari stood on his bridge watching sensors light up with new contacts. The Velcross were coming. Thousands of bioships, maybe tens of thousands, the largest concentration of enemy forces he had ever seen. They're gathering around the nebula's edge, his tactical officer reported. Estimate. Commander, I'm reading over 15,000 vessels. 15,000. The Coalition fleet had 37 ships. The Inquisitor, damaged and barely operational, was still docked for repairs. This was not a battle. It was an execution. Captain Chen, are you seeing this? Zexathari asked over the communication channel. We see it. Chen's voice came back calm. Right on schedule. Admiral Cormac's fleet will arrive in 7 minutes. Captain, with respect, 50 human ships against 15,000, 51 ships, Chen corrected. The Inquisitor will fight. Your vessel is in no condition. My vessel will fight, Chen repeated, and her voice carried absolute certainty. We didn't come here to watch. Cross moved beside Zexathari. Commander, we should retreat. Pull back to the secondary defensive line. This is suicide. Zexathari clicked his mandibles, thinking. The logical decision was retreat. Save what ships they had. Live to fight another day. But he looked at the Inquisitor on his display, battered and scarred, its crew working frantically to repair weapons and armor. The humans were not retreating. We hold position, he decided. If the humans are willing to die here, we will stand with them. The minutes crawled by. The Velcross swarm grew larger, moving into attack formation. They were being patient this time, coordinating properly. The Queen Mind had learned from the earlier defeat. This would not be a simple charge. This would be a calculated, overwhelming assault. New contacts, the sensor officer shouted. Faster than light signatures. Multiple vessels. Commander, 51 human ships just entered the system. The tactical display exploded with new icons. Human warships of all sizes materialized from FTL, dropping into real space in perfect formation. At their center was a massive vessel, twice the size of the Inquisitor. Its hull was painted with the image of a grinning skull wearing a naval cap. This is Admiral Marcus Cormac of the TCNS Retribution, commanding Earth's Third Fleet. A new voice boomed across all channels. It was deep, rough, and carried the weight of absolute authority. Captain Chen, status report. Inquisitor operational at 60%, sir, Chen responded. Enemy forces number approximately 15,000 bioships. Coalition fleet is at 37 vessels. No casualties since our arrival. Outstanding work, Captain. We'll take it from here. There was a pause, then Cormac's voice changed, became harder. All ships, this is the Admiral. Remember New Perth. Remember the 2 million souls the Velcross consumed. Today we teach them what it means to cross humanity. The human fleet began moving forward, not cautiously, not defensively. They accelerated toward the Velcross swarm like predators spotting prey. Commander Zexathari, Admiral Cormac addressed him directly. Thank you for holding the line. We have operational command now. Recommend your fleet forms a secondary perimeter. Stay out of our firing lanes. Admiral, we can fight. I know you can, Commander. And you will if any Velcross break through our lines. But this is our fight. We have a debt to collect. Zexathari wanted to protest, but something in the Admiral's tone stopped him. This was personal for the humans. This was about revenge. The human fleet spread into a formation Zexathari had never seen before. 3 layers, each one supporting the others. The front line consisted of heavy cruisers like the Inquisitor, built to absorb damage. Behind them came destroyers and frigates, faster ships armed with long-range missiles. And at the center, protected but still deadly, battleships carrying weapons that made the Inquisitor's arsenal look small. The Velcross attacked first, thousands of bioships surging forward. They moved like a living wave, coordinated perfectly by their queen mind. It should have been overwhelming. It should have crushed the human fleet through sheer numbers, but the humans had prepared for exactly this. All ships, execute Pattern Omega, Admiral Cormac ordered. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. Kinetic weapons, nuclear missiles, energy beams that the Inquisitor had not used. The space between the two forces became a storm of destruction. Velcross bioships exploded by the hundreds, but hundreds more kept coming. The front line of human cruisers took the brunt of the attack. Velcross weapons tore at their armor, melted their hulls, set them burning. But the ships did not break formation. They stood like a wall, protecting the vessels behind them while their own weapons carved through the enemy. They're using their cruisers as shields, Cross breathed in horror, deliberately taking damage to protect their other ships. Pack tactics, Zexthari said, understanding now. Like predatory animals on a hunt, the strong protect the group. Every ship trusts the others to do their part. The battle became a brutal slugging match. Velcross bioships crashed against the human lines, dying in droves but inflicting terrible damage. 3 human cruisers exploded, overwhelmed by focused fire. A destroyer broke in half, its reactor detonating. The humans paid in blood for every meter they advanced, but they did advance. Slowly, relentlessly, the human fleet pushed forward into the swarm. Their damaged ships fell back to secondary positions while fresh vessels rotated to the front line. Wounded ships kept fighting with whatever weapons still functioned. When a human vessel's weapons went offline, it used itself as a battering ram. Admiral, TCNS Defiant is critically damaged, a voice reported on the human channel. Hull breaches on all decks, reactor failing. Defiant, this is Admiral Cormac. Can you reach the enemy command cluster? Affirmative, sir. We can make it, then make it count. Godspeed, Defiant. Zexthari watched in shock as the crippled human destroyer accelerated toward the center of the Velcross formation, where their largest bioships coordinated the swarm. The Defiant was falling apart, trailing atmosphere and debris, but it did not slow down. It crashed into a massive Velcross capital ship at full speed, and its reactor detonated, creating a miniature sun that consumed dozens of enemy vessels. They sacrificed their ship, Cross said quietly. Deliberately. They sacrificed it to save others, Zexthari corrected. Every Velcross ship that Cluster commanded is now leaderless. Look at the tactical display. That section of the swarm is falling into chaos. The human fleet pressed their advantage ruthlessly. Where the Velcross showed weakness, human ships concentrated fire. Where the enemy tried to regroup, nuclear missiles scattered them. Admiral Cormac directed the battle like a composer conducting an orchestra, brutal and beautiful at once. Enemy forces are beginning to retreat, Zexthari's sensor officer reported. They're broadcasting what I think is a withdrawal signal. Human fleet, this is Commander Zexthari, he called out. The enemy is retreating. You've won. Admiral Cormac's response was cold. We're not accepting their surrender. What? All ships pursue and destroy, Cormac ordered his fleet. No mercy. No quarter. We end this swarm here and now. The human fleet accelerated, chasing the fleeing Velcross. What had been a battle became a slaughter. The enemy tried to scatter, tried to escape to FTL, but human ships ran them down one by one. Missiles tracked fleeing bioships across the system. Railguns fired at extreme range. The humans showed no mercy. This is genocide, Cross hissed. This is war, Zexthari replied softly. The humans are ensuring this Velcross swarm can never threaten anyone again. The battle lasted 6 more hours. When it finally ended, the space around the Calthax Nebula was filled with debris from thousands of destroyed Velcross bioships. The human fleet had lost 8 vessels with another 20 badly damaged. But the enemy was gone, destroyed, eliminated. Admiral Cormac's voice came across the open channel one final time. Commander Zexthari, the line is yours again. Third Fleet is moving to the next engagement zone. We have 6 more Velcross swarms to eliminate before we go home. Admiral, Zexthari said carefully. Thank you. You saved us. Don't thank us, Commander. We didn't do this for you. We did this for New Perth. We did this so every species in the galaxy knows what happens when you attack humanity. You just happen to benefit. The human fleet began jumping to FTL, disappearing one by one. The Inquisitor was the last to leave. Captain Chen sent a final message. "Good luck, Commander. Try to stay alive." Then she was gone, and Zexathari was left staring at the empty space where 51 human warships had been. 6 months later, Commander Zexathari stood before the Galactic Council giving his report. The Grand Chamber was filled with representatives from 200 species, all listening in silence as he described what he had witnessed at the Calthax Nebula. The human fleet eliminated approximately 14,000 Velcross bioships in a single engagement, he said, his voice echoing in the vast space. They lost 8 vessels, suffered heavy damage to 20 more, but achieved complete tactical victory. The Velcross swarm that had threatened the core worlds for 3 years was destroyed in one day. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some voices expressed awe, others fear. Since that battle, Zexathari continued, the momentum of the war has shifted entirely. Human fleets have engaged Velcross forces in 17 different systems. They have won every single engagement. The enemy is now in full retreat from Coalition space. The council speaker, an ancient crystalline being, chimed thoughtfully. "This is welcome news, Commander. The humans have proven themselves valuable allies, have they?" A voice interrupted. It belonged to Ambassador Thex, a diplomatic species known for caution. Or have they proven themselves to be the next threat? Commander, you witnessed their tactics firsthand. Tell the council what they did. Zexathari clicked his mandibles uncomfortably. He knew what Thex wanted him to say. The humans fight with extreme aggression. They use weapons most species banned. They do not accept surrender or allow retreats. Their tactics are brutal and ruthless. They commit genocide, Thex said flatly. They do not fight to repel the enemy. They fight to exterminate them. Today it is the Velcross. Tomorrow, who will it be? The chamber erupted in debate. Some species praised humanity's effectiveness. Others expressed concern about their methods. The argument raged for hours with no clear resolution. Finally, the council speaker brought order. This council will debate the human question further, the ancient being announced. But for now, we acknowledge that humanity has saved billions of coalition lives. Commander Zexathari, your report is accepted. You are dismissed. Zexathari left the council chamber, his mind heavy with conflicting thoughts. He found Cross waiting in the corridor. What did they decide? His second-in-command asked. Nothing yet. They fear the humans almost as much as they appreciate them. Can you blame them? I've been reading reports from other battlefronts. The humans are terrifying in combat. They show no mercy. They pursue fleeing enemies across entire star systems. There are stories of human marines boarding Velcross vessels and fighting hand-to-hand in the corridors. Zexathari nodded slowly. I have heard the same stories. But I have also heard something else. New reports from Velcross-controlled space. What kind of reports? The enemy is changing their behavior. Velcross swarms that detect human ships are retreating without engagement. Some are abandoning entire systems just because a human vessel was spotted nearby. They're afraid, Cross. For the first time in this war, the Velcross are afraid. They walked in silence for a moment before Cross spoke again. I intercepted an interesting communication yesterday. It was being passed between merchant ships, not official channels. A warning. What kind of warning? If you see a human war vessel, do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not test them. Several species are starting to broadcast similar messages. The humans have only been in the galaxy for 5 years, but they've already built a reputation that makes people nervous. Zexathari thought about Captain Chen and her scarred ship, about Admiral Cormac and his ruthless efficiency, about the way humans fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to prove. Perhaps that's exactly what they wanted, he said quietly. What do you mean? Remember what Captain Chen told me? Reputation is a weapon. Fear is a weapon. The humans are not just fighting the Velcross. They're establishing themselves in the galactic order. They're making sure everyone knows that humanity is not to be trifled with. So we should fear them? Zexathari considered the question carefully. I think we should respect them, and be very grateful they're our allies. Meanwhile, in deep space near the frontier, the TCNS Inquisitor floated in a repair dock. The damage from the Calthax battle had been extensive, requiring 3 months of work to fully repair. Now the ship looked almost new, its dark gray armor pristine and unmarked. Captain Sarah Chen walked through the corridors, inspecting the repairs personally. She ran her hand along a freshly welded bulkhead, remembering how this section had been burning during the battle. 12 crew members had died here, fighting fires while the ship fought the Velcross. She knew all their names. Captain Chen, a young ensign, approached nervously. "We've received new orders from Fleet Command." Chen took the data pad and read quickly. Her expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Another frontier system?" her executive officer asked, reading over her shoulder. "The Velcross hit a colony there 2 weeks ago. Small swarm, maybe 1,000 ships. They're requesting human assistance. 1,000 ships. That's barely worth deploying a full task force." Chen smiled slightly. "Command doesn't think so either. They're sending just us. 1 ship against 1,000. Haven't we already proven we can do this?" "That's the point," Chen replied. "Every battle we win alone makes the reputation stronger. Every impossible victory makes humanity seem more dangerous, more unstoppable." She walked to the bridge, her crew following. The Inquisitor was ready. Its weapons were loaded, its armor was strong, and its crew was eager. They had survived the Calthax Nebula. They had fought alongside Admiral Cormac's fleet. They were veterans now, hardened by real combat. "All hands, this is the captain," Chen announced over the ship-wide channel. "We have new orders. Another colony needs our help. Another swarm needs to learn what happens when they threaten humanity's friends. I know we just finished repairs. I know some of you were hoping for leave time. But people are dying, and we're the ones who can save them." She paused, looking around at her bridge crew. They were young, most of them, barely out of the academy. But they had proven themselves in fire and blood. They were ready. "Remember why we're here," she continued. "Remember New Perth. Remember that somewhere out there Velcross swarms are deciding whether to attack another defenseless colony. And remember that our job is to make them think twice, to make them afraid, to make them regret ever leaving their home space." She sat in the captain's chair, feeling its familiar weight settle around her. "Helm, plot a course for the frontier. Best speed. Engineering, I want the reactor ready for combat operations. Weapons, start running drills. We're going back to war." "Aye, Captain," the responses came back, crisp and professional. The Inquisitor's engines powered up, that distinctive hum that Chen had learned to love. The ship turned away from the dock, accelerating toward the jump point. Behind them, other human ships were doing the same, deploying across the galaxy to dozens of battlefronts. Chen pulled up the tactical data on her command screen. 1,000 Velcross bioships. A few months ago, that would have seemed impossible. Now it just seemed like another day's work. "Captain," her communications officer called out. "We're receiving a message from the colony. They're thanking us for responding so quickly. They're saying they feel safer now that a human warship is coming." "Acknowledge their message," Chen ordered. "Tell them we'll be there in 18 hours. Tell them to hold on. Tell them humanity doesn't abandon its friends." The ship jumped to FTL and the stars stretched into lines of light. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her chair, looking at the view screen, thinking about the battles ahead. The Velcross were learning fear. The galaxy was learning respect. And humanity was proving that despite being newcomers to the stars, they were nobody's victims. On Earth, in the headquarters of the Terran Confederation Navy, Admiral Cormac studied reports from across the galaxy. The war was turning in their favor. Velcross swarms were retreating. Coalition worlds were safe. Human casualties were surprisingly low, all things considered. But he also read the other reports, the ones from Coalition intelligence. The whispered fears in the Galactic Council, the growing unease about human military capabilities. An aide entered his office. "Sir, the Council has formally requested that humanity consider joining the Galactic Weapons Convention. They want us to ban nuclear weapons and restrict kinetic weaponry." Cormac smiled without humor. "And what did we tell them?" "We politely declined, sir. We cited the ongoing Velcross threat as justification." "Good. Let them talk. Let them debate. Let them fear us if they must. As long as they remember that humanity stands with its allies and destroys its enemies, we're doing our job." He looked at the star map on his wall, showing human deployments across the galaxy. 50 years ago, humans had been confined to one solar system, ignorant of the universe beyond. Now they were a power to be reckoned with. Now when people saw a human warship, they thought twice before causing trouble. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," Cormac ordered. "Continue current operations, maintain our reputation, and remind them, we fight not just to win battles but to make sure nobody wants to fight us in the first place." The aide saluted and left. Cormac turned back to his reports, a small smile on his face. Across the galaxy on a Velcross hive world, the Queen Mind pondered the defeat at Calthax Nebula. She had lost thousands of her children. She had felt their deaths across the psychic network, each one a stab of pain, and she had learned something important. Humans were not prey. They were predators. Apex predators. And predators recognized other predators. The Queen Mind sent new orders across her swarms. Avoid human vessels. Avoid human colonies. Avoid anything with the mark of humanity. Some wars were not worth winning. Some enemies were too dangerous to make. The humans had sent their message, and the galaxy had received it.